And welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. In this special episode, I'm going to talk about my fascination with former Fulham Academy players and why I still follow their careers. There's a different reason for each player that I'm going to talk about. And I had to think about why I do this. So I'm going to share my views on this in this 15 to 20-minute episode. The reason why I thought I would bring this to a podcast is that I actually tweeted yesterday about Fabio Carvalho, and I got a ton of people sharing their comments on it. I'm going to be sharing the tweet and also some of the comments that I got on my tweet about Fabio because I find that interesting. I'm going to be focusing on him at the end of the show because that to me was really the idea of this episode of Cottage Talk because I do have a fascination with former Fulham Academy players. And it's interesting, like I mentioned, they're all different. All the reasons are different. That's why I'm going to bring this up. And I'm curious what you think. And at the very end, if you're watching live, I'm going to ask the question: would you take Fabio Carvalho back in the summer? Would you? Would you want him back at Fulham? So that's going to be the question at the end. As always, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. We are getting so many people subscribing on YouTube. Really appreciate that. Would also love you to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Our reviews go back several years. So I would love some fresh reviews on Cottage Talk if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. That would be great. So I just wanted to share that as well. Okay, so let's start the episode. But before I do, there is one topic of news that I do want to talk a little bit about. This one is kind of sad. And if you're watching live, feel free to share your thoughts on Alfie Mawson, who is now retiring from football. And this is actually a sad situation. I had very high hopes for Alfie Mawson when he came to Fulham. I thought he was going to be a starting center back for Fulham for years to come. And unfortunately for him, it was all to do with injuries. He just had so many injuries, and it just continued throughout his time at Fulham. And now he is about to retire from football, or basically is retiring from football. So I want to wish Alfie Mawson all the best in whatever he does in the rest of his career. I wish it worked out with him at Fulham, but regardless, I do wish Alfie Mawson the best. So that's how I actually wanted to start the show. Okay. So I've given this some thought, and I was just curious why I am fascinated. The one thing that I want to mention is that I have different thoughts of different players. And where does this come from? Where does my fascination with former academy players comes from? And it's weird because it comes from several places, with me following players that have left, say, the Patriots, the Red Sox, players that lived in Boston that played for, there was one famous player that played for Georgetown University, Patrick Ewing. I followed them after they had left the area or left the team. So it's interesting why I do this, but it's something that I've always done. So in regards to the former Fulham Academy players, I'm going to start with an interesting one. And it's actually not Fabio. I'm going to end with Fabio. I want to start by talking about Harvey Elliott. Like I mentioned, I have reasons for following Harvey Elliott, Ryan Sessegnon, and then Fabio Carvalho, and they're different. Let's start with Harvey Elliott. I did not like at all how Harvey Elliott left Fulham. Let's just say that. I didn't like how that all played out in the end. Fulham tried to keep him in the fold. They played him in his final season to try to entice him to stay. But Harvey Elliott wanted to move on and wanted to go to Liverpool. And this, in my opinion, I'm following him not because I want him to succeed. I'm being honest here. It's not that I want him to fail. I just want to see if he turns out like Pat Roberts. For me, it has more to do with that. I want to see if he ends up being the next Pat Roberts or if he turns out to be something. So I am fascinated to see who wins with him and Fulham. And I did a whole podcast a while ago, like a few of them dealing with the academy players, and Harvey Elliott was one of them. So my thoughts on Harvey Elliott really go to that place. It's not that I'm hoping that he fails. It's just that I want to see if the grass is greener. Pat Robertson certainly did not work out. Harvey Elliott, it's still a long way to go. I followed him when he went to Blackburn. Now he's back at Liverpool. He's starting to play more. So he might not end up being Pat Roberts, but that's where the fascination comes in for me, is that I want to see where his career goes. Does it go in a positive direction, or does it go down that Pat Roberts way where I think maybe he might be regretting that decision to leave Fulham? That's Harvey Elliott. That's number one. Let's now talk about Ryan Sessegnon. And this is a completely different reason why I've been following Ryan's career. Now, Ryan left, gave Fulham some very good seasons. I think Ryan made a mistake. I think Ryan definitely made a mistake by going to Tottenham Hotspur when he went. But I'm following him because right now I do not like at all the way that he's been treated by the Tottenham Hotspur supporters. I follow all of the stuff on him on Twitter, and there's so much vitriol in regards to Ryan Sessegnon. It's funny because I saw it with Clint Dempsey. I actually did see it with Moussa Dembele. This has a lot more to do with the Tottenham Hotspur supporters than anything else. In my opinion, I can't stand their supporters. I can't stand the supporters of Tottenham Hotspur. They basically just attack their own players on a regular basis. And I'm just never been one to do that. So I basically want Ryan to succeed in spite of all of these supporters. So when he plays well, I like to see the comments, but they still come in a negative fashion. Their expectations for Ryan were probably extremely high, and he's not lived up to those expectations. But I actually want him to prove them all wrong. Not because I want him to come back to Fulham, which I do not, but I want those supporters to be wrong. Like I said, I've got different reasons for following different Fulham Academy players. Ryan Sessegnon, it's about beating those Tottenham Hotspur supporters, which I think are some of the worst in the world. I just cannot stand their supporters. They are horrific, horrible. And the way that they have treated their players, I think, is horrible online. If you go on Twitter, it's not just Ryan Sessegnon, it's several players. But the crap that he has gotten, I'm sorry, it's just not warranted. It's not warranted. It's not deserved. So for me, I want him to prove them wrong. For me, this is about Tottenham Hotspur and not truly about Ryan Sessegnon. So I do follow all of his games. I do follow all that stuff on Twitter, just like I follow the stuff on Harvey Elliott. But with Ryan, I actually do wish him the best. But for me, this has a lot more to do with a terrible fan base and the Tottenham Hotspur supporters. I want them to be wrong. I so badly want them to be wrong. I can't stand them. So I want Ryan to play well. I absolutely do. And the answer is I don't want him back at Fulham. I absolutely don't. I don't. But I want him to have a good career. He came through the academy, gave Fulham some good years, and I want him to have a good career. Him, yes, I want him to have a good career. Not back at Fulham, though. So coming up next, to end the show, we're going to have a lengthy discussion, second half of the show, on Fabio Carvalho. Okay, so basically what gave me the idea to do this show was what I tweeted about in regards to Fabio Carvalho, because I noticed once again that Fabio did not play or was not even on the bench for Liverpool in their last match. So it got me to think, why does this continue to happen? He was injured a few weeks ago. I do not think this was injury related, but I'm going to share this tweet If you're watching live, here is the tweet. And this is what started this whole conversation because I had so many people respond to it. So here is my tweet, and then I'm going to share my views on Fabio. So I tweeted, okay, so Fabio Carvalho, not even on the bench for Liverpool. This is not good for Fabio. Now, I got a lot of responses to this, and I'm going to share a few on my screen. If you're watching on YouTube or watching live, here are some of the comments. This is from my good friend, J.E. Harknessel, and I hope I'm saying that correct. Russ, I'm a person who once a player leaves, I couldn't care less how their career pans out. You make your bed, you lay in it. I don't know why you care. I'm going to share why I care in just a second. But JE, I completely understand where you're coming from. I totally do. Because I actually felt the same way about Tom Brady with my Patriots. So I totally understand this. I get this. And I got a lot of comments like this. Now, here's another one that says, sign him back in the summer, in my opinion. William FFC says, should never have left us. Stefan says, it happens to so many players who then fall by the wayside when they could have been fantastic careers elsewhere. The grass is not always greener on the other side. I hope his will be greener. I do too, Stefan. Very good comments. Like I said, I got several comments. I'm going to continue to share them. This is from Andy Jeffries. So what is chase the money? Who else to blame but himself? I'm sorry, I'm going to say that again. So what he chased the money. Who else to blame but himself? Tony Montgomery said, more importantly is a lesson to young, talented players. Think very carefully about jumping ship before you're fully established at Premier League level. One full season in the Premier might be worth 2 or 3 in the wilderness of under 21s at a big club. Very good point there, Tony Montgomery. Like I said, I've got so many of them, and I can't go through all of them. I am going to share the last one here from my good friend David Swearing. Russ, not often I disagree with you, but once a player has signed for another club, to me, it makes zero difference if he does well or badly, starts or doesn't, etc. Same goes for Elliott, Sessegnon, etc. Not our problem. David, I understand where you're coming on that. And I'll just also share this. My good friend and co-host of Fulham Shadow said, I don't want him anywhere near Fulham, Russ. He can stay where he is. He made his choice. And I totally understand that. I understand where the Fulham supporters are coming from with their views on this. Some wouldn't mind having him back, but I understand why many don't want any part of Fabio Carvalho. Now, I'm going to give you why I care about his career. So I actually do want Fabio back because I can see that there's so much to offer from Fabio. I want Fulham to try to sign him this summer. This is why I'm looking at it differently than the other two. I see there being an opportunity because I don't think he's going to play regularly with Liverpool. His talent is going to waste. I want Fulham to put in a bid and bring him back to Fulham. I know we have Andres Pereira, but Andres Pereira, 2 or 3 seasons with Fulham, maybe after this, you've got a young player that I think has so much to offer. And I want him back at Fulham Football Club. I want him to be the Wilfred Zaha. I want Fabio to be Wilfred Zaha. It can happen. Look what Zaha did with Manchester United. It didn't work out. He came back to Crystal Palace. He'll end up being a Crystal Palace legend. I think Fabio can do the same. You might disagree with me, but that's why I want Fabio back with Fulham, because I think there's so much to offer, and I don't think he's going to get it at Liverpool, but I do think he could get it with Fulham. Maybe not right away, but I want Fabio back at Fulham. Again, different reason for different player, and I think part of it, like I said, I think in many of these cases it deals with money, pressure from family potentially with some of these players, but I think Fabio should come back to Fulham. And I want him back at Fulham. It's different than Ryan and different than Harvey Elliott, different than Pat Roberts. I would want Fabio back. That's just me. He's the exception to the rule when it comes to that. Let's see. This is from Steve Reynolds thought he was better than Fulham. Don't beat the hand that feeds you. Very interesting. Okay. So that is my reason for wanting Fabio back. And I understand why people are going to disagree with me. I respect everyone's view. And I hope people understand my view on why I would like Fabio Carvalho back at Fulham. This is why I'm continuing to follow his career, because actually I want him back at Fulham Football Club. I do. I want him back. So that's where I'm going on that. Well, that's going to do it for this quick episode of Cottage Talk. As always, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help other Fulham supporters find us. And I hope you enjoyed, again, a different type of show that I'm bringing to you, trying to bring you all different types of talk on Fulham as often as possible. But that's going to do it for this episode. My name is Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, now part of the TalkSport Fan Network.